For a test match, before you went to bed, you had a little list. Why did you do that, and can you remember what you wrote down each time?
Yeah, the reason I did a lot of that stuff was it was about creating my own routines, because I think a lot of what you do at training for cricket is so false to what you actually get when it's game time. When you go out in the middle, you think about your net preparation. It's a different strip than you're going to be playing on in the middle. You've got 6 bowlers bowling at you in the nets, different conditioned balls, nets beside you, no fielders in place, no crowd noise, none of that sort of stuff. So I wanted to try and recreate my own sort of preparation methods, and that was just to, as I was getting tired in bed at night, I'd lay down with just the one book that I kept the whole time, and I'd just tell myself the really simple keys that I knew when I was doing when I was playing well. So it was, it was watching the ball, it was calling loud, it was being patient, it was being positive in attack and defence, batting for long periods of time, making 100, and then so I'd do all those things, and then I'd go through the opposition bowlers and identify in my own mind how I thought they would attack me the next day. One, how they'd try and get me out, and if they didn't get me out early, how they'd restrict my scoring areas. So I'd put all that into the computer, and hopefully when I got to the ground the next morning, I didn't have to think too much about it.
Well, you've written that all down right, so you've probably done that once or twice before. What about when you got to the crease, though? Because you had to clear all the garbage away from you.
Yeah, well, this was my space for the day. That's how I looked at it. This is where I'm going to be, hopefully for 6 hours today, or if not later into the next day. So when I came out, it was the same old thing. I'd take centre. Make sure I scratched it a certain amount of times, and then just clear the area. Any rubble had to be out of my area here, and anything looking down the pitch to where the ball would be coming from, whether it be on a good length or even right up in the bowler's footmarks, I had to clear all that area out as well. So I took my time to get that done, and a few little stretches and things, and then I'd get into it.
But specifically looking down where you thought the ball might land.
Yeah, so when I took my stance was always about shoulder width, pretty athletic sort of position. My front toe was always a little bit open. My natural first movement was to sort of fall across my stumps a little bit, so I wanted to actually move back to a square position and not a closed off position. And then when I was in my stance, as the bowler started running in, I would look down on a specific line and length. And that's actually a very good example of where I'd be looking. Now, obviously vary with the different bowlers. The height of the bowlers made that vary a little bit, but I've always felt what the best players in the world did, they actually minimised an area that the bowlers could bowl. So for me, I actually visualised a piece of A4 paper, and any bowler that could land the ball on that area consistently, then that's where I felt that they could tie me down. If they were good enough to keep landing the ball there, then they could tie me down. If they landed full of that, with the way that I picked the bat up and the way I started to move, I felt I could drive the ball from that length that was full of that. If it was short of that, the way I picked the bat up as well enabled me to be able to pull the ball from a lot fuller than most other batsmen probably could. One, probably because I was not very tall, but because of that first movement with my hands up nice and high allowed me to drop the bat on the ball and pull what some bowlers would probably think was a good length ball.
That's the key to bowling at him.
That's what I was going to say. Whenever I played against Ricky, if you didn't hit that length, you knew that he was either going to pull you through there or he'd drive you. And it was normally mid-on, he'd drive you. And that's what made it. He imposed himself on you. And he came at you, so you knew that you had to get it on, as he calls that, postage stamp. You had a chance early on. If he did, he might nick it, He didn't do it very often, but that is how restricted he made the bowler feel. Here pull, there drive.
When you're in your stance, though, your back lift always fascinated me, because it was always so high.
Yep.
Was that a conscious decision, or part of your movements?
No, it wasn't. I think it was actually almost just me getting ready and prepared. Like if I think back through my developmental times as a cricketer, I was always, as a 10 or 11-year-old, facing what I felt like test match bowling all the time. And I was brought up on hard wickets. And as we know, these hard wickets, they tend to bounce a lot. So when you're little, facing big tall men that are bowling fast, I had to develop a way to be able to survive. And I think that's just what it was. Bat up nice and high. The ball always bouncing high on me. That gave me time to be able to hit the ball.
What did it also benefit, Dominic, if you just popped down, because we just lob a few at you, your hands were higher, which enabled you to play the pull a little bit easier?
Yeah, I think for the simple fact that with my first movement being looking to go forward, this was almost a counterbalance, I think, to this movement here. And because I had my hands nice and high, I always felt my hands were above the bounce of the ball. Now, if you think about a classic pull shot, it is hitting from high to low to be able to control. You don't want to top edge it out into the outfield, basically. So with my hands being high here, I felt they were always above the bounce of the ball, and I could just simply drop the bat, what it felt like, drop the bat on the ball. So that's why I felt it made it just that little bit easier for me. Other players like, say, a Mark Waugh, a Damien Martin sort of player that were probably very elegant looking players, not as strong off the back foot as someone like me. The reason for that was that if you think about the way they played, their hands were always really low and always close to their legs. They were very good players through the leg side, and they also hit the ball really late behind point on the offside, because that's, once again, less movement for their hands down here.
Right, so you've made the bowlers pitch it up because you keep clobbering through there because your hands are nice and high and you take it on the short ball. With that high backlift though, did that generate more power when you did come forward into the drive?
Well, I've probably never known as a powerful player, but theoretically, yes, it should. And the way I always looked at it as well, I don't know if it was ever a big backlift. I think it was more like a real...
Cock wrist.
Yeah, snap of the wrist or cock of the wrist, because I don't think my arms or hands actually moved too far, but the face of the bat did. And when I picked the bat up as well, I was always coached to let the guy that was fielding at point be able to see the full face of the bat. That allowed me to feel that I could score basically 360 degrees around the ground. So I tried to stay as still as I could.
Yeah.
Nice backlift, and then hopefully like a nice full flow of the bat.
Would it be fair to say, I'm thinking of yourself, you got people like Kevin Peterson, Brian Lara, the best have always had that bat, sort of cock wrist high with Lara, but the bat face going that way. There's only a few that really shut the face. But the most notable would be Tendulkar and perhaps Callis.
Yeah, that's probably fair. And we were talking earlier, weren't we, about the way maybe some of the English players in days gone by were taught to stand up nice and tall, with the bat being back this way. But I've got images of Graham Gooch in my head. Although he stood like that, I'm pretty sure on release, he still had the bat in that sort of, like this. And if you think about Lara, he actually got it even further. He almost opened it right up here. But where were his strengths?
Yeah.
right through that area there. Virender Sehwag, the same, very open bat face. They would just kill you through backward point, and probably not as strong down the ground as what guys with a closed face are.